Hello and welcome to Engine Adventures review of this 2025 Nissan Armada Pro-4X. For 2025, Nissan has made the Armada the same as the Nissan Patrol worldwide, at least as far as I can tell. I've reached out, hopefully by the time I edit this video I'll have some answers, but the worldwide Patrol has a larger differential than the previous generation Armada. And if this one has that bigger one, that would be great. Anyway, I've reached out for a few things. That's front and rear diffs and some other stuff. But the frame on this thing, I'll throw some pictures up. It is very robust. This thing is incredibly, like, the biggest frame I've ever seen, as far as it's like 6 inches wide. Really, really large frame. Nissan says it's like something 30% stiffer than the previous frame for torsional rigidity. So it's definitely shows with how stiff the frame is. And when you're driving around on road, you can tell it has a really nice smooth ride and there's no creaks and rattles or anything. So with the torsional rigidity or stiffness of the frame, that's where your creaks and rattles come in. If it's low, then you'll have a lot. If it's high, then you won't have many. There's a lot of other things that go into that with build quality and such as well, but anyway, that's just a general rule, and they've done a really good job with this thing. On the road, incredible, super smooth. If you want to see off-road and towing, you'll have to check out the other videos, but on-road it's really well laid out. Let's take a look under the hood. Powering the new Armada is a VR35 DDTT twin-turbo V6. Not much different from what's in the GTR, of course, tuned and modified and all that stuff for heavier duty. This thing puts out 425 horsepower, 519 foot-pounds of torque, I want to say off the top of my head. I can't remember that one for sure, but in that range, 519 foot-pounds of torque. And it gets torque down low. Peak torque's like 3,600 RPM. You really start to feel it a little above 2,000, and it really, really goes well. The transmission is a 9-speed automatic, which is pretty good. I feel a tiny bit of jerkiness, especially, you know, stopped or at low speeds, just kind of creeping along. But on the highway, cruising around town, all that kind of stuff, as long as you're not coming to a complete stop or close to it, it's really, really well tuned and just drives excellent. Towing, it did wonderful as well. The only real challenge or issue I had, like I said, was coming from a stop or slowly creeping. It would be a little jumpy, a little bit lurchy. Anyway, overall, really, really love this setup. It's excellent. This thing is massive. So if we come back here, take a look at the front end. 83 inches wide. It's gonna be hard to tell on video, of course, but for comparison, the new Sequoia, 79.8 inches. Suburban and Tahoe, they're in the 81 range. Ford Raptor's 86. So it's not quite as wide as a Ford Raptor, but this thing is a big, beefy, wide vehicle. And it shows. It drives, like when you go to park, it's just so big to look down over the hood, try and see the corners. I mean, of course, being the Pro-4X and top trim media model, you've got cameras surrounding the whole vehicle, gives you a nice view. It makes it easy to deal with that kind of parking situation. But without it, it would take a minute to get used to how large this vehicle is and difficult it may be to park. Tires on this are, I believe they're 33 inch. I'll put that up on the screen, but 275 60R20s, Geolandar ATs from Yokohama. Pretty decent tire. It's a Geo15, I believe. I don't see the number on there. Yeah, Geo15 is the tire number on there. They're decent tires. They give you good highway characteristics while still being an all-terrain with pretty decent all-terrain characteristics. There's no way is it a mud tire. One thing I really don't like is the glass doesn't open. You can't open the glass separately. Some vehicles have gone that way. Really, that irks me a bit. If you're carrying stuff and it's all stacked up here in the back, you want to load it through the back window, you can't do it. And one of the benefits to this vehicle is four-corner air suspension. And I don't think it's down all the way right now. Normally, when I stop, it would be down. Let's see if it'll lower. I haven't figured out how these buttons work. So anyway, you should be able to lower and raise it right there, but it might have to be like right after you get out instead of a few minutes later. But Anyway, it generally will, when I park, if I leave it in auto mode, air suspension will drop down, and it makes this load floor pretty low, and it makes it so you could reach in through the glass and get stuff off of this. You know, if you're sports equipment or stacking a bunch of stuff in there, potential for it to fall out when you open the whole lift gate is pretty decent, but if you could reach in through the glass, it'd be much lower. Anyway, enough ranting about that. Lots of space back here. So behind the third row, decent amount of space. I think there's a little bit more here than there is in the Tahoe. Of course, the Suburban has a lot more. More here for sure than in the Sequoia. The Sequoia has a pretty tight space back here. And honestly, I don't know who the competitors to this are. So the Sequoia is the most rugged by far. Solid rear axle. Just kind of more built on the same platform, TNGA frame that the Land Cruiser is built on. It's just a little bit more built for that type of terrain. The Tahoe, I would say, is more road friendly than this. Well, this is actually really good on the road, but more road oriented than this. So this has kind of an in between the Sequoia and Tahoe. So when you're shopping around those vehicles, this has probably more, I would say it's more comfortable, confident, sure-footed off-road than the Tahoe is, but not quite the same level of comfort. I say comfort and peace of mind as the Sequoia. Both are quite capable vehicles. Anyway, down here, a little extra storage underneath. We have the Klipsch sound system, which is really good, but this is, I believe, an amp for that. So you lose a little bit of storage there, but there's a decent amount of storage, especially in your Pro-4X trim. Maybe some tire chains, tow ropes, recovery equipment, whatever could go under there. Over here, a little pocket. I would probably put either jumper cables or first aid kit in there. It's not real big, but little pocket there. 120 volt outlet, 150 watt there. This side, you have the controls to raise and lower the rear air suspension. These ones fold the seats, so it's just one touch. That seat will lift, or same thing to fold it. And then for the next row up, if I'm gonna hit this left one here and drop that, and it drops the middle and the left. So you can do that from the rear. If you're loading in something long or whatever, you can easily do that from back here. Yeah, anyway, I think that kind of wraps up the back. You have, you know, the lock or just the close button and power lift gate, of course. The hitch is behind here. It's not too bad to pull off. Where'd those clips go? So you have these clips, they unscrew, and when they unscrew, they pop down, and then you can just pull them out from there. So it's a little bit of a challenge, but it's not too bad. I mean, if I were towing somewhat regularly, I would pull that off and just leave it off. If I were only rarely towing, I would probably just leave it on. It looks nice with it on there. So let's go ahead and climb into this back seat here. And this is something that I really wanted to show. Sorry. Get that set up. So anyway, to get into the back seat, these will rock forward and slide. And sorry for the media guys, I've already got footprints back here, but then that seat will slide, and that's all the way back. I'm 5'10", still have some leg room there, and if you look at my head up here, you can see it is touching the ceiling. So these seats do recline, however, as you saw, they're power fold and recline, so I can actually drop this back, and that's interesting because it gets worse. I'm now hitting on this plastic piece back here. So maybe there's like kind of a sweet spot in between. I can still feel my hair touching, but it's not as bad right there. Anyway, it does have these droid-shaped headrests, and not too uncomfortable, honestly. Fitting 3 back here would be a little tight. You do get USBs on either side. No sunshade. This window's really pretty tinted dark. And one thing I do like are these air vents up here. And I'll talk about that a second. In the second row, do also have speakers back here as well. So let me move into the second row. Okay, before we sit down, this is a little annoying that that's where it stops. But you can pull this string here and tilt it to whatever angle you want, and inside of there are a couple of cup holders. Sitting in the second row is just cavernous, plenty of room. My seat is actually quite a bit further back than it would be where I'm driving. It's got the auto thing where it moves it back to make it easier to get in and out. So it is pretty far back right now, and I still have a ton of room, plenty of headroom. There's a lot of just overall room in this vehicle. I don't have it on right now. Let me see. I can't hit the brake, but I can at least do that. So there you go. The seat's moving forward. That's where I would sit when I would drive, and there's a lot of room in there. Controls back here, seat warmer for both sides. It's not going to turn on because the vehicle is not actually turned on, but you can adjust temperature, and it's just one zone for both. Again, vents up here. So the reason I like these vents is when you have a kid in a car seat here, if you have only vents down here, which this actually doesn't have any vents down here, but if the vents were here, you don't get that air onto the child in the car seat. So when it's hot in the summer and you're driving, and especially if you're on this side in the sun, you want that air blowing down to help cool the kid off. Car seats are generally kind of hot because they like wrap around the kid anyway. So it's nice to have those vents up there. I really like those. Anyway, back down here, 2 more USB-Cs and a 12-volt power outlet there. I find it oddly satisfying that there are no entertainment features back here. I don't know why. I mean, there's tablets and all that stuff that abound now, and so I just, these ones with built-in, they always seem to age quickly and need, replaced before, 5 years, 10 years maximum. So it's nice that it's not here because you can just use a tablet or whatever on that. So anyway, I know some people are going to want that up here. Of course, you're not going to have a DVD screen because you have a massive, let me turn down the fan, massive sunroof up here. And this does make for a nice open feel when you're driving. If you have claustrophobic people, even people that get motion sick, it does help having more views around. So that is helpful in that scenario. You have a nice cabin, comfy and closed in. I do have one issue. I like to sit a little bit higher, especially with how high this hood is. So you're kind of seeing what my eye line is right now. So when I look down, the steering wheel does cover like half of that cluster. So you kind of duck down to see it all. Now let's just go ahead and fire the whole thing on. So I do, that is like one of the issues, but it's very minor. You can, if you want the steering wheel to be up, you can. I don't like the steering wheel up personally, which is why I have that bad view. But anyway, so it's partially my fault, but the way I like to sit, it's a little blocked. Over here on this side, some accent lighting and whatever else, the lane keep assist, open the rear hatch, auto hold, and the parking brake. You got your mirror controls and all that stuff here, and the mirrors do project a pretty cool pedal lamp. It's a since 1951 image of a Patrol, which is pretty cool. Over on this side, trailer brake controller. It's in a good spot except for the view, so as long as you know what's there, you're good. If you're in a panic situation and you're not used to driving the vehicle, you might not be able to see that right away. For me, it's not too bad. Like I said, you'll get used to it. And it's a decent controller. When I towed with it, had no issues, so be sure to check out the towing video. I already talked about the piano black, or you'll see the piano black in the driving portion of the video. I don't like this. I won't rant about it now because I already did somewhere else. Do have a whole bunch of drive modes, downhill assist. We'll go through some of those in the off-road video, but standard, eco, sport, tow, rock, sand, mud and rut, and snow. And some of these, I believe, like here, it automatically shifts you into 4 high. And then if you want to shift into 4 low, you have to do that manually. That's something I haven't talked about yet. Auto 4-wheel drive, so it's always in the auto 4-wheel drive. And let me get to that screen. It is this one here. You can show the all-wheel drive torque. So it's got a clutch-based center differential that can add a little bit of power to the front whenever it's needed. And surprisingly, it gets really good gas mileage even with that. So usually that saps a little bit of efficiency out of it by having a full-time system, but this one works really well and remains quite efficient. Yeah, heated and cooled seats. Let me close that sunroof. Heated and cooled front seats here, dual zone climate control up front, And auto height for the suspension, that's to turn that on and off. I'll just leave it on. Then the auto stop start, you can see my greasy fingerprints on there from hitting that. I personally don't like it a ton. It says it saved 103 miles of range over 1,300 miles. That's like 10% almost of range, which is pretty good. So the auto stop start is definitely saving some fuel, but I hate when I'm at a stoplight, especially if I'm the car in front. If I'm a few cars back, it's fine. I can, anticipate it. But when I'm the car in the front, the light changes to green, the motor's off. It takes it a second to pick up and get going. Anyway, and that's not just a Nissan thing. That's all vehicles. So Pro-4X gets you the locking rear differential. We'll go over that a bit more in the off-road video, and then your traction controls over here. I do like this whole setup. Buttons. I like buttons. So I thought I wasn't going to like this screen. I actually do like this screen quite a bit. It's just because I'm in in the standard drive mode, but because I went through them, it's doing that. There's not like a ton of views and settings up here. This one is a fun one right here. GPS position. So we're at 4,700 feet, and anyway, it gives you a bit of information there. I do like having that one, but there isn't like a ton of information here. So if we go to all settings and display, like it's just lights and the theme. There's not like a whole bunch of different things to show, and the same with the vehicle. And that is one thing. Well, I guess we can take a look at the dash cam here. You have a front camera, so that's what the dash cam sees out the front. Here's what it sees out the rear, and then it also has this inside camera. So that is right here. And I'm not sure what this one is. I think that's a sensor up here, but that one right there is the inside dash camera. Kind of cool, I guess. It's just already built in. If you are interested in having a dash camera, it's probably nice having it included in the vehicle. Probably blame Tesla for that, as they have their surround view cameras and all that stuff that's kind of always recording. It takes a hit and it will save all that information for you. But as far as the screens go, like, there is not a ton to do here, and that's one issue I have. You have a fuel gauge and coolant temperature gauge, and it doesn't matter like which one I go into. There was a tow settings in here somewhere, but it's probably in here for the towing. Yeah, towing settings. You just don't get to add any other gauges. So it would be nice to have like an oil pressure gauge or a trans temp or oil temperature. I know, especially with modern vehicles, they'll let you know when any of that overheats. Especially when towing, I like to have a tranny temp gauge. This one obviously just doesn't have that. So there are some nice features here, but I feel like it is lacking on that. There's a tool fuel save. 107 miles have been saved. 10 minutes worth of driving, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but the math must work out there. And then it does have the off-road page here. So I don't know if I'm missing something on this screen. I've tried to mess around with it a bit to figure out where all the other features are, what else I can view on this screen. But it's kind of just like you have maps, you have audio, Android Auto. It's actually on Android Auto anyway, so you can go through all that stuff. Your climate control, it's all just controlled from here, or it can be seen on here, but you don't get like a lot of vehicle information. So I would love to see like a bigger off-road pages. There are, like I said, tons of adjustability in here and things to mess with, but you don't get any like additional information or gauges in here. So yeah, anyway, that's that. It does have like Google built into it. Amazon Alexa's there as well, and you do have the dash cam feature, of course. You can take and record video in here, and you can flip it around to the inside camera or the outside camera. I'm not sure how you get that off of the vehicle, if you have to download it or what. Anyway, so that's kind of it for the interior review. Let's go ahead and get into the driving portion. So the Armada loves the freeway. Let me go to the fuel mileage. It gets, when you're just cruising, Like, it gets such good fuel mileage. It's not going to be accurate right now, but I was going down that little hill. When you're on the freeway, you're cruising 75 miles an hour, 22, 23 miles per gallon is pretty typical, it seems like. And it's really not a stretch to, you know, if you're going 65 miles an hour, you can be up above 25 miles per gallon easily. Anyway, so it gets really good fuel mileage comparatively, you know, to the Sequoia. This is a tough one. So the Sequoia is a little bit smaller. The Tahoe is about the same size as this, so it kind of more competes with the Tahoe. This thing's big, wide. It's 3 inches wider than the Sequoia, 2.5 inches wider than the Tahoe. So it's a pretty big vehicle overall, right, width-wise, and it feels it. Like, it's really quite a wide vehicle. But when you're cruising, like, it just doesn't get the fuel mileage you would expect. You think it's a lot, that it would get a lot worse than it actually does. So it does really well when you're just cruising. And I don't use adaptive cruise control a ton. I used it a tiny bit just to test it out, and it works just fine, right? Like, for your depth and whatever. I don't use it for lane keeping assist because most of the time I end up fighting those systems when you get into a construction zone or whatever. I've had a few that have been okay, but for the most part I've always end up fighting them, so I don't like using them. Again, I tested it here and on open road and stuff. Let me turn on Pro Pilot Assist, I guess, and see if I can get it to, there we go, steering assist on. And it's doing pretty good as far, there we go. Set the cruise control, actually we'll speed it up a little bit. There we go. So, and then the distance to the car in front of me, there. So you do have to keep your hands on the wheel, but it's doing a pretty good job of keeping it centered. We have a turn coming up right here. I'm just going to let it stay behind this truck, and we'll see how well it handles the turn coming up. Really though, like I said, I don't use these a ton. It is nice, especially like when you get Fords or Chevys. Chevy Super Cruise, I don't know what Ford's is called, but they work pretty well. You know, the Cadillac, all that kind of stuff, that stuff works well. And this one actually handled that corner really well also. The full self-drive thing is nice to have sometimes, especially cruising open roads. It just like went 3/4 throttle right there. I feel like a lot of them do that. They don't keep a super consistent speed as effectively as they're trying to keep the distance from the car in front of them. Someone pulls in front of you, it'll brake pretty hard. Someone pulls out from in front of you, they'll tend to accelerate pretty hard. I think there's a lot of tuning that can be done in these systems to optimize them, but overall, those Pro Pilot Assist here in the Nissan is really not a bad system at all. Again, I don't use that stuff most of the time. Long road trips for sure, but when I'm just going around town, I don't see a need for it. You know, you're not going to get fatigued driving around town, and even on long road trips. My personal vehicles don't have it, and those are the ones I usually take on long road trips, but it is a nice benefit to have the assist for that type of driving. So my fuel mileage, let's go back up here. I've been on the freeway for about 6 miles. Total distance is 71.6, and I've gone from 14 miles per gallon, 14.2, up to 15.6 in like 5 miles. So like right now it's showing above 40 miles per gallon. Again, that's not accurate because we're going down a hill. Now we're going flat, just slightly uphill, and it's sitting at like 28 miles per gallon at 72 miles an hour. Yeah, this thing is just cruises on the freeway super good, super smooth, super smooth over the bumps and everything. It's just like driving in an old Ford Crown Victoria or Lincoln Continental or Lincoln Town Car or whatever. Like, it just cruises over all these bumps, no issue at all. I'm going to get past this guy. This semi here is dropping a lot of sand. Let's get up past him. There we go. Anyway, so it's really just a smooth highway cruiser for sure. And you feel that around town. It's a little bit floaty and tiny bit jerky, I would say. So a lot of times I put it in eco mode. I'm just in normal mode. I think maybe the transmission's still learning things. I'll try and just barely touch the gas, and sometimes it'll be like a bit jerky. I know this transmission, this is the 9-speed auto. It's had issues like this in the past, so it might be a Nissan thing, but I think it figures it out over time. As some of the other vehicles I've driven from Nissan with the 9-speed haven't had this issue. Anyway, it's pretty smooth overall. Occasionally I'll get that jerkiness, and it's not just getting on the gas, because sometimes just barely touching the brakes will give me that jerky feeling and a little bit more brake dive than I would expect. But overall, I still love this vehicle. I love the way it drives. The air suspension, I'm not a huge fan of the complexity of air suspension, and passenger cars, for whatever reason, the air suspension seems to not last as long. I honestly haven't heard of many issues with the Armada that's had the air suspension in the rear for a long time. But now on all four corners, just drives wonderfully. You can raise and lower the whole vehicle when you go to stop. I have it set in auto right now, so when I stop, it'll drop down. It just automatically does it, and it's nice to have. But when you look at over-the-road trucks, semis and all that kind of stuff that are doing 1,000,000 miles on the airbags and not really having airbag issues, I don't know if it's just the electronics in these passenger cars that usually have them, but again, Nissan seems to be pretty reliable with that. And then adding to that, you have the adjustable dampers, so the dampers are electronically controlled as well, which that's the part that surprised me a little bit, because like I said, there's a bit of leaning. I actually didn't feel it too much there. Cornering, it'll lean a bit, but it's probably more abrupt movements. That one was a long sweeping corner. And then brake dive, you'll get that a bit as well. One thing I hate that's happening to me right now, it's not going to show up on camera because I'm in a different angle. See if I can get this real quick. So there's my view of the center console right now, and the reflection's not going to show up as bad on camera as it is in real life. Sorry, back to my rant. Why manufacturers put piano black anywhere really on a vehicle, but especially on the dash, is beyond me. It's super easy to scratch. It's really reflective. It gets dirty and dusty easy. Looks super nice when it's brand new, fresh on the showroom floor or whatever. You take this thing off-road for 2 minutes, it's going to be covered in dust. You have kids, you drive it for a week, I can see fingerprints all over it. Unless you're constantly maintaining it and being extremely careful with it, it's just not a good design, in my opinion. The downsides far outweigh the beautiful look of it. So your only upside is how it looks, and everything else is a negative on it. But manufacturers are still doing that. I don't understand it. It's a bad thing. Get rid of it. We might have a chance at a 0 to 60 here. I haven't hooked up my OBD2, so we're not going to get the most accurate. I'll pull it frame by frame from the camera. But this is just going to be flat foot. I'm not going to rev it. It is a turbo, so it would get benefit from revving. But here we go, flat foot. Oh yeah, I felt the jump at 3,500 RPM. 60. So it feels good. Even, at 2,000, 2,500 RPM. As soon as you get up to about 3,500 RPM, peak torque's right there. I felt like an extra boost there. So even though it was going plenty strong, plenty fast, it just felt like there was a little bit more to give. It, pushed me back a tiny bit in my seat once it got to the 3,500 RPM. So yeah, definitely, I wouldn't say turbo lag, but you get up in the boost and it really starts to move. And it actually feels like it pulls harder from 35 to 42 than it does above 4,200 RPM. I don't think I talked about this before, but this thing is super quiet inside. So if I turn the fan down and all that, there's almost no road noise at 45, 50 miles an hour. You start to hear it at, 65, 70, pushing 75, 80. It gets a bit louder, of course, but this is a big vehicle moving a lot of air. But all the acoustic glass in here, it just makes for a silent, serene drive if you're at lower speeds. Like I said, at higher speeds, it's still great. It's not LS sedan or S-Class or any of that stuff, but it is very quiet at higher speeds, but at low speeds, it's just dead silent. All right, there were just a couple of things I wanted to go over. This accent, I'm not sure what this other light is, but the accent light is for the panorama sunroof. So that should turn that light off and back on. But I don't know, I haven't figured out what the other one is yet. Also, I know I didn't go over the window sticker, so let's do that real quick. And in short, there aren't a ton of options on this thing. I was actually quite surprised. So the base price is $73,000 for the 2025 Nissan Armada Pro-4X with intelligent four-wheel drive. And sorry, I would normally be showing the paper for this, but it's just on my phone. So the Pro-4X premium package is the heated and ventilated front seats with the 12-way power, including the lumbar, which is 4-way lumbar, which I love, heated second row seats, panoramic moonroof, all that kind of stuff, is $2,780. And then that also includes the dash cam. Two-tone paint, $1,450. Pro-4X carpet floor mats, $850. I wonder if they have rubberized floor mats. If you're doing an off-road trim, you probably want the rubber one rather than carpet ones. That also comes with the first aid kit that's in the back. And then a convenience package, and comes with the trash bin here. And I don't know if that light's going to help much, but there's also a cargo net right there. There's not one on the driver's side, of course, because that would get in your way of your feet. And there's an umbrella holder, and I don't know where the umbrella holder is, so I might have to look for that. And then illuminated kick plates, $450. Illuminated scuff plates, that's in the rear. There's like a bunch of little lights in the rear, and that's $475. And then the panoramic headliner illumination is $605. So one thing that's standard is, I'll put a picture up of it, the like classic or heritage or whatever Nissan Patrol logo that doubles as a puddle lamp when it fires up. So, everything else on here is standard. The 20-inch wheels, the all-terrain tires with the spare tire, and it says it's a temporary spare. It's a pretty big size temporary spare, so it's not your normal temporary spare that's really small. And then, of course, the tow hooks, skid plates, all that kind of stuff comes with it as well. So all the options, along with a $2,000 destination charge, bring it to $82,430, which honestly is right on par. That's what, your Sequoia, your TRD Pro is probably even going to be a little bit above that. The Grand Wagoneer, the Wagoneers, you're going to be in that range or above that range, depending on the trim level you get. Tahoe Z71, which, is that right? Yeah, Tahoe Z71 is their off-road one, and it is kind of in the similar range. So they're all about that same price range for the off-roaders, and they're all very nicely equipped. I would say they're similarly equipped. I also didn't mention the trailer brake controllers standard in the vehicle as well, at least in the Pro-4X. So, see fuel mileage there. 16 combined city highway, 15 in the city, 18 on the highway. And of course, I did some off-roading and some of that stuff. We averaged 13.9 over 182 miles. So in the Sequoia, I actually went a little bit further. I think I went 220 miles, but averaged 12.8. And that's with the hybrid Sequoia. So there may have been a little bit more idling and stuff, but I feel like this one is performing just a little bit better. And as I mentioned in the video, if you're just cruising on the freeway, it's easy to get over 18, at least per the trip computer. And then around town, if you're cruising around town, I mean, if you're having to stop every, minute or whatever at stoplights, then it drops pretty significantly. But if you're able to just kind of cruise through the stoplights without, or the traffic lights, if they're all green, it makes a huge difference. Like, it seems like this thing uses a lot of fuel when it idles. And I know all vehicles are kind of that way. I don't know why. It just really drops when this thing idles, because I was surprised at how well it does when you're actually moving. And then, of course, it's pretty quick off the line and whatever, so it's fun to get into it just a little bit. Like, if you're really light footing it, you can get better than what I'm getting here. And most of this mileage was, I would say 75% of it was around town and 25% freeway. One thing I would have liked to have seen, there are some nice anchor points. It's a little hard to see in the dark, and also in the floor. Decent anchor points, but there are no grocery hooks anywhere to put a grocery bag on. That would have been a nice addition to have maybe a couple little grocery hooks here on the back or on the sides. Not a huge deal, but these are family haulers. They're going to be going everywhere, including the grocery store, and it's a simple little thing to have those hooks, but they are very convenient to keep your milk or whatever else from moving around and spilling over. So, here are the illuminated sill plates on the rear. Here on the side. Thank you for watching Engine Adventures review of this 2025 Nissan Armada. Really like this vehicle overall. I like it on-road, I like it off-road, I like it when it's towing. It's a good all-rounder. It's not hardcore at any of those. I would say it actually performs best on-road. If you're going for a really hard off-roader that's this size, I don't know what you're looking for. A Sequoia is maybe a little better at that, but as far as an all-around vehicle, this thing is just performing excellently. Love the twin turbo V6 in this. I love the old V8. It sounded great, it ran great, smooth revving, just a wonderful engine that's based on a Nissan Motorsport engine. Same thing with this twin turbo V6. It's just smooth, really well developed V6 engine. I love it. You can see actually the rear air suspension has dropped all the way down now at some point during the filming. But anyway, overall, really love this vehicle. If you liked what you saw, be sure to ring the bell. Subscribe first, then ring the bell so you get notifications when we post new videos, and give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down, do all that other stuff. And either way, be sure to comment. Let me know what you did like, what you didn't like, what you want to see different. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.